You are listening to the Partner Up podcast by Welcome to Bundaberg. I'm Gail Reynolds, and in this series you will hear from community leaders who are kicking big collaborative working together goals. We will highlight the successful partnerships, shedding light on the positive impact they have had on both businesses and the community. Welcome to Bundaberg aims to improve the health and well-being, work and lifestyle outcomes for people living in Bundaberg by activating and implementing a range of community-led strategies across a range of services for a more connected, cohesive community. Let's go. Before we start today's episode, I would like to acknowledge country. I would like us to take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place and connection. In the spirit of reconciliation, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we live, work and love on. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging of all the lands, and I extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today. So today we're here with Brave Brothers founder, David Facer. So please introduce yourself, David. Tell us all about Brave Brothers.
Hey, well, welcome to this marvellous opportunity to have a conversation with yourself, and it's great for it to be going out as well. So, superb opportunity for the community to learn about a few people.
Yeah.
So, absolutely marvellous. So, as you've just introduced, really, Dave Facer, and we founded Brave Brothers just over a year ago. We launched in June of last year, which is Men's Health Month. The whole demeanour of Brave Brothers was brought about by the fact that I'd been approached by a few people to develop supports for initially men in general around suicide prevention. Having a wide experience in suicide prevention made people gravitate towards me for that sort of support. In previous lives, I've been involved in community services throughout Bundaberg and the Wide Bay district, and been involved in federal and state programs. So the decision at my time of life, where you get a little bit of more opportunity to do the things that are more passion projects, really came about and really had us the opportunity to work on a project and develop something that actually comes from the heart, and using knowledge and a lot of other people's knowledge was just a great opportunity to do that and support not only men in the community, women, families, and develop myself as well. So that was a little bit about what Brave Brothers was originally about.
Yeah, one of the things when I first sort of heard about Brave Brothers, or maybe when you launched, one of the things that I was really impressed with was the group of people that you had around you who were supporting the message, who were kind of like the ambassador, I don't know what you call them, but of Brave Brothers. So those people that are involved, how did you build that circle of people right from the beginning?
Well, it is interesting when you get observations like this, because although we launched in June, the concept was in the making from probably 2018, 2019 in conversations. And although it was more on a back burner style approach of thought, there was always something ticking over. So in little conversations with people who I came across in my circle, there was always a little bit of memory making to go, actually, how can this person help? Are their values similar or in the same pathways as what Brave Brothers is going to be? So there was no real overnight decision on this is this one, this is this one. It is a collection of originally collegial friends that have developed into being a very supportive body while maintaining that professional approach as well, which I think when you're trying to develop something new, you can't just run down avenues and not have a reason there. You occasionally need somebody to go hold you back a little bit, and these guys do that, and the great women that we've got involved in this project as well have been intrinsic to keeping the vision on track.
Yeah, that's a really great answer, because sometimes when we see things launch or come out in the community, it is like you just said, oh, where did that come from? But actually it's been percolating away for 5 or so years, where you've been developing those relationships, you've been having those conversations and really looking at, I guess, the community need for it then to come to where it is now, and will continue beyond that.
Yeah, and I think one of the major learnings and the lessons that we've got out of it, and I've personally got out of that, is the importance of not only relationship building, but understanding that some are long-term relationships, some are short-term relationships. They can all be beneficial, but everything has a two-wayness to things when we're starting off on initiatives. In our field, our charitable field, sometimes it's very difficult to monetize the ideas, and also there's a lot of big ideas where supports are needed on a local basis, but maybe people's perceptions are a lot easier to achieve than they genuinely are. So to make some small inroads takes an awful lot of time, an awful lot of rejections in area, and getting used to that in building those relationships with people supporting us, but also with businesses in the area who are quite happy to support and be associated with, to be honest with you, the areas we're looking at are not necessarily what all businesses want to be associated with. Suicide and domestic violence. They're not the prettiest of areas. So I always kind of take my hat off to those people who will support us and allow us to do what we think we do well on their behalf.
And I think that's a really important point, because it's a bit of a stereotype of we can't talk about that, or we don't talk about that, and that needs to stop, because we do need to talk about it, and we do need to support groups of like Brave Brothers who can help us achieve that, those conversations, having that impact in the community, so that we can create a better place for everyone to live. Yeah. And
I think when we're talking about relationships in community, sometimes it takes a lot to work out what the other party requires. A lot of the time can be spent on going what we need to do something, and not necessarily thinking what your sponsor, supporter, what they need out of it. From a charitable sense, we'd like to always think there's nothing attached. But in business there usually is. And that's okay, because the value of that relationship, whether it's financial, whether it's in gift format, or whether it's just in advice and guidance from a business sense, is so valuable to what we're trying to do. One of the conversations that will always stick with me is from an organisation who has supported us in terms of advice and guidance. And they're quite happy to do this. And the conversation basically went around the fact that you do the things that we can't do, and I would probably not want to put myself in that position to do that. So that was a great starting point for us. We've then actually had further conversations and slowly turned, well, we sort of look at this on a fear base, because people are sometimes frightened to support, particularly in these areas. And I can say now that 2 years down the track, when we have that conversation with our friend there, they're now no longer frightened to have that, but they'd still rather not do it, and that's okay. But we've actually been able to give some skills, taken the fear away, and if we can take the fear away from both suicide prevention and family domestic violence awareness, we are taking away the stigma. And if we can do that, we are ticking some big boxes.
For sure. So I'd really love to hear from you about a time, a story that you could perhaps share with us around a collaborative project or event or something that you've been a part of that was really exciting, and you worked with different people, and what it looked like, what the impact was.
There's a fair few projects like that, and then I think there's different energy within each of these areas. As Brave Brothers, we started off as a collaboration. We needed people to support. We needed people to give us space outside of their businesses. And once again, I keep going back to the fact that it's not the prettiest of subjects, but under men's health and men's mental health awareness, they seem to be the two biggest ones. The collaboration with businesses locally, but individuals within those businesses has been really important. So engineering companies that have quite a large male cohort, through word of mouth, found what we were doing, and within their value structure, they saw us and thought, you fit. And then approached us because of the work that we'd already done in the community with others. And we believe by being able to do this, and we produce a few Facebook videos and things, to be active and trying to reduce that stigma by talking about it, and showing that actually learning a few techniques can be done in a very simple conversation. So being at events is a huge thing. So collaborating, most recently, most exciting one was with our local Lighthouse Motel and the Country Music Festival that took place, which was super. A little bit damp on the day, but it was so good. The importance that when Gavin, the manager there, contacted us, in fact we contacted them originally to say, can we have a pop-up, because this is what we do, and he wanted to learn a bit more about us as well. We find that those levels of engagement are so important, because being in the public eye makes somebody else think, oh, okay, this is quite valuable, and we can then grow that support body. And so just by being at the Lighthouse Festival, we had over 40 conversations which were about suicide, family domestic violence. We actually had what we call one intervention, so that was somebody who had actually gone there with the consideration of taking their life, and we dealt with that. So we know what we do kind of works, and this is probably the little reasoning of why we do it, and why I kind of get quite passionate about the fact of going, it doesn't really matter if some people don't think we fit their brand structure or whatever. We know wherever we are, we actually make a difference. And anybody who takes a risk on allowing us to be where we are, there is no risk. It's a very brave thing they do, and allowing us to support people face to face. But we know everywhere we've been, we have had an impact, and that's really important.
It is really important, and it's really good to see the different levels of business and organisations in all types of industries across lots of different sectors. I see you popping up here, there and everywhere, because having those conversations and those really pertinent conversations are the ones that matter. And it's the foresight of those people who are, allowing you to have that space to have those conversations that's really important. And that's it's a real benefit to the community, and it's a real benefit to their workplace or to their organisation or community group to have those conversations. And if they don't feel that they're up for it, and most likely that they're not, they can bring someone in, an organisation in who is, who's local, who's benefiting the Bundaberg community, and they can have those conversations on their behalf. And just to know that you're actually having that impact is fabulous.
One of the areas that we're quite keen to develop is our brief intervention training and education supports. Because historically, suicide prevention and family domestic violence for men have been day-long or 2-day longs, and our target market, which is primarily men for interest, a lot of people, well, they don't get the opportunity to take that time off work. So if they're working in the mechanics, if they're working at the engineering factory, it's kind of not the norm to go and say, actually, can I have a morning off to go to suicide prevention training? Because they're not going to get paid for it. In our socio-economic community at the moment, people need to continue doing their job, they need to continue getting paid. But then we have this circular effect of nothing actually gets done within the cohort of people who need the awareness. So we've developed shorter training areas that we can do within organisations. So the longest one being 3 hours for a particular there, and we can go as short as a 30-minute smart prevention strategy. We were quite lucky to obtain a coffee trailer, which once that's finally finished out, and we've probably got its first going out at the end of June at an event that's taking place. So once we've got that on the road, we actually want to get that round to employers and have the opportunity to share a coffee with employees in the morning or whenever. And that gives us the opportunity to create a conversation and give some resources where people can go to next. That way, employers are being part of that process of showing support to employees, but also we're allowing us to get out there and not take up too much time. That's going to be our next big development sector for that.
What do you think the best things are about the different types of businesses that you've been working with and those collaborative partnerships? What are the good things that have happened because of that?
Well, I think it's really important to validate those people that have actually been quite brave to invite us into breakfasts particularly, whereas the traditional toolbox talk is they throw a barbecue out, here's the day, here's the week, here's a few bits from some primary mental health place, and we've ticked a box and we've done our job. When we've actually attended, we give a genuine talk, we give resources. We're actually still hanging around if necessary for anybody to talk to us directly at the end. And here's the important bit. We are here locally. And so if anybody does have a specific need, they can talk to me personally, and we can have direct intervention if necessary, and support, and going in the right areas. They can come and see us out at other pop-ups for any other queries, but we are local. And I think the importance that we put out about shopping locally is exactly the same as any support networks. If you can support your local support networks, because they're the ones you're going to go to first. And so for particularly employers to be very brave, to go, this is genuine for us. They actually benefit, their employees benefit, because it actually shows that their bosses genuinely care, instead of throwing up the once a year Barbie around men's mental health. Mental health care and DV care is every day of the year. It's not about one day.
Yeah, for sure. I think that working with different people at different levels within organisations, you're hitting so many parts of the community, and that's got to be just a benefit for everyone in general, because you can't do it alone. And if you get a no every time you approach a business, then you can't actually do the good work that you're here to do. So it is a real thank you to those businesses and organisations who have allowed you that time and space. And so what is it that you look for when you are partnering, or when you're collaborating with, whether it's people one-on-one or whether it's businesses? Like, what are the values or the morals or the guidance that you kind of lean into when you're wanting to work with people?
It's very important around, these words are bandied about a little bit, so transparency, openness, and stigma reducing.
Mm-hmm.
For people who are prepared to be open-minded, that's key. Because initially, when we're talking around men's health, there's sometimes a misconception that that's all we are about. But when we're looking at suicide prevention, that's for men and women. Family domestic violence, men and women. Our awareness projects around health or cancer prevention, they focus on the primary cancers that men may deal with, so skin, prostate, testicular, because there's less information around those topics there. It is very important that when people kind of invite us in, that they know where we are, what we stand for. And we are not, there's sometimes this misapprehension with some organisations that if you focus on men's things, there could potentially be some misogyny in there, and a very old-fashioned approach to masculinity. One of the major differences that will come along, and we need to work out how to get this message across, is that masculinity is not necessarily have to be associated with the word toxic all the time. Unfortunately, it is. There's good forms of masculinity, and there's things to be proud of for masculinity. That doesn't necessarily mean there's no support for LGBTQI community, because there is. Because there are men within those circles, and everybody lives with those same areas. It's very important to be open and inclusive, not have any stigma associated with any other groups. So as a man in this industry, we are supportive of all people, not just men. Our focus is men's health. But then again, so is a lot of women's focus, because they actually want to know more about how they can support their partners. And it's the same things. So it's really important when we partner with people that the value base is the same. We come across tradies and you name it, all those industries which are high male industries, which sometimes get a bad rap of being too masculine. But actually you've only got to dig down a little bit and find there's good men in here that have challenges as well. There are not good men who need challenging, but they need challenging by the people around them who need to be brave enough to do that. And so this is one of the other functions that we think we need to be out there, is kind of standing up for the rest of society and standing up for your fellow brother, because if there's not good being happening over there, it is our responsibility to call it out. Whether that's in domestic violence, whether it's in poor information, or whether it's in violence per se, or saving somebody's life. It is a brave brother's responsibility to stand up and speak out.
Yeah, that's a really important topic, and there's a lot of I feel like momentum happening around that space at the moment, you know, putting men at the centre of trying to solve or be a part of solving some of those issues, and that's really important. So tell me, what does the future look like? So when you look towards the future, what do you want to see? What do you want it to represent or to be like for Bundaberg and Brave Brothers?
I think for Bundaberg, I'd rather start off there, because it takes more than Brave Brothers to vision what that would be in a good community. Bundaberg's the community that I live in, and I've lived here for nearly 19 years now. And even in that period of time, I've seen development and change. As a community, we probably need to get better with change and the processes that go through that. The challenges that come along with growing community is what will come under the microscope at times from outside. So dealing with some of our community's challenges, such as the domestic violence areas, where now, we know that 80% of police time is taken up with just dealing with domestic violence. I want to live in a community where police are doing their job of stopping somebody who might be trying to rob my house, helping some kids on the street, stopping the speeding drivers. Probably not me though. So, but doing those jobs instead of becoming referees in relationships. And I'd like to see a community where you don't feel frightened to ask your friend what's troubling them and how you can help. Sounds quite simple, but I know it's not, and we need to get the message out that little vision takes a lot of work. And for Brave Brothers, as the founder, I see the vision growing into being able to support people to make those two other areas a little bit easier. And so when my children and my grandchildren and their children, hopefully around the area, will live in a much safer, kinder society. That's really where we sort of stand.
Wonderful. Well, it's been good chatting with you. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the conversation today?
I think the only element which we'd really like to say is for us to achieve this as a community, we all actually need to think about our hearts, our heads, the future, and really be prepared to stand up and speak out, because if we don't, no change.
Well, thanks for joining us, Dave. It's good to have you here, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this episode. If you would like to listen to future episodes, you can follow or subscribe to Welcome to Bundaberg on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, at Welcome to Bundaberg.